Welcome back, everyone. Speaking for the president demands a lot of expertise, of course, and after the knowledge of the internal workings of government at the highest level, of course, that is a familiar terrain and is going to be an asset. I have joining me the former President Goodluck Jonathan Special Advisor in Media and Publicity, Dr. Reuben Abati. Many thanks for coming on the program.
Good evening.
Feel a little bit relaxed now. I mean, after almost 2 years from the villa, how is life away from the coziness of the number one, perhaps the most fortified place in the country?
Well, I don't know about coziness, but of course, life is more relaxed now. There is less pressure. If you work in the presidency, the schedule is usually very tough. And if you have to manage the president's media and communications process, you just discover that to survive the 24-hour news cycle and the pressure from the media, from virtually everywhere, local, international, both the traditional formal media and the social media, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of demands, and having to attend meetings. The work itself is, punitive. But of course, the most difficult job is that of the president, who carries the entire burden of statecraft and providing leadership for all Nigerians at home and in diaspora. So if you talk about life being a bit relaxed, yes, I say, well, that pressure is not on my head now, so I'm a bit relaxed.
Especially when you sleep and you know that there are no demons around your apartment. Like you wrote, you said there are obviously demons in that place.
Well, I mean, religious people will tell you that there are many dimensions to reality. There is the physical, there is the natural, there is the supernatural, there is the ethereal, there is the spiritual. Okay, I guess, in a religious country like this, is something that people will have no problems dealing with. But what I wrote about, was just to explain my own experience, my own observations. I mean, I have lots of observations, that I could write about. But people tell me, oh, don't give everything to the public, so that when you do a book, then you wouldn't have given out everything and people will have no reason to read your book. But that's not the issue anyway. I was talking about a particular kind of experience that I observed. And the interesting point is that after that article came out, many of my colleagues who worked in the villa at the time I was there, they kept calling and they kept saying, Reuben, you left out my own experience. Do you remember that I lost 3 members of my family and I had 4 different kinds of surgery? Another person will call and say, you left out my own. So I told them, look, if I had to include what all of you went through, I would write an entire book. But after that article, a journalist, Ben Agande of Vanguard, he did a page-length piece on the same issue. He's the Vanguard correspondent in the State House. And he included so many other examples. And I called him and I said, your article even has more examples than mine. He said, look, after the article, he started interviewing people around the villa. Okay? And then I think Femi Fani-Kayode also did a famous piece on his experience in the aviation sector. So, I mean, for many of us Nigerians, we react based on our own experience. But a lot of people say, oh, this must be fiction. Oh, this is too, too strange to be believed. But I can tell you that people who work in the villa, who work there, there have been many stories about the kind of challenges that they face.
There are more spiritual things that meet the eye working in the villa, isn't it?
Well, from my interaction and from my own experience, interaction with my colleagues, from things that I heard and all that, I just try to give an impression of what transpired there in our time, to say that, look, it's a very spiritually challenging environment. But from the reactions, some people have said, well, if you work in any environment, it will be challenging. You just must be prayerful. You call on whatever, you think can protect you.
Dr. Abati, you spoke in that article as much as saying that there are a lot of things that you will work on, you and your team with the president, and some of the things that the president had planned, but it doesn't come out well from the point of view of Nigerians. And you think, a lot of people have said, that's just an excuse that you're giving. You think that the president had better intentions than his performance looked in the sight of Nigerians?
Well, I mean, every president has good intentions. One of the things I discovered working with politicians is that politicians, they want to do well. They want to be liked. You know, they enjoy public attention, and they like to win elections. So no president will get to the top, either in Nigeria or anywhere, and his intention will be to offend the people or to be remembered negatively. Because once you become president, the first thing you should begin to think about is legacy. How will I be remembered? That's the highest office in the land. There's nothing after that. So when you get there, you want to leave a legacy that will be remembered. At least I've seen that. Either, you know, interacting with a sitting president or former presidents, you know. So in terms of things coming out negatively, yes, there were many instances of that. You know, good intentions, but when the thing gets across to the public for one reason or the other, either for political reasons or for what I termed spiritual reasons, you know, the thing just goes wrong direction. You say one thing, it's misunderstood, okay? And I guess in retrospect, what it means is that it's not just about communication. It's about being prepared all the time for things going wrong, you know, either for the X factor reason or for any other reason, and just knowing that this is a job on which everyone has to be on his or her toes all the time, 24 hours.
Do you regret working with the former president?
No, I do not regret it. I've said this in many interviews, and I've made it very clear that if you work in government, it's a special kind of exposure. It's like going to a university, you know, maybe if you like, the University of Life, because if you're on this side, okay, it's very easy to talk, it's very easy to analyze. But when you go into government, you begin to gain a knowledge of how government works. Many of the people out there, you know, who comment on government affairs, who, you know, every Nigerian is a football coach, you know, an expert. They are watching Chelsea and Arsenal. They are saying, oh, that number 10 should be here. Everybody knows how to do it. And it's the same way a lot of people comment on governance. But when you get into the arena, you get to learn a lot. So I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had, serving at that high level in Nigeria, and for the many lessons and the quality exposure that I received.
Do you think that your integrity and your name was intact by the time you came out?
Well, I mean, yes, I think so. I really don't think that there's any challenge in that regard. I believe that I did a good job.
If you look at, let's in retrospect, we talked about a few issues. Let's talk about the future and now what is happening. Having worked in the villa for 4 years and knowing the state of things now in the nation, are you disappointed by what is happening in that office that you've worked or around that arena where you've worked for 4 years?
What I can say categorically is that it is not easy to run a country. And it is even more difficult to run a government. And you see, our democracy is evolving. We keep learning many lessons. I think one of the early articles I wrote after I left government talked about the lessons we've been learning since 1999. And we will continue to learn these lessons in different directions, okay? One of the challenges with democracy in Nigeria is the crisis of rising expectations. Expectations rise every day. People have very high expectations. A government comes in, after a while, the people will say, oh, we are tired of this government. They start criticizing the government. Oh, we want change. We want a different direction. We want a different kind of style.